Ever get that feeling, where you're so excited about something,
Mm-hmm.
but then you also feel this like pressure, this intensity to make it absolutely perfect?
Oh, absolutely. Like you're caught between excitement and that nagging feeling of, don't mess this up.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Okay.
This whole idea. And we're looking at the case of Marie, who's a sophrologist and hypnotherapist.
Interesting. So we're already dealing with practices that really delve into the mind-body connection.
Right. And that's part of what makes this case so fascinating.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the struggle that Marie's facing?
So it's not like she's rigid or anything. Actually, she considers herself to be very intuitive.
Right.
But at the same time, she puts this immense pressure on herself, like she has to get it perfect for her clients every single time.
It's like that internal pressure cooker, wanting to help so much that it almost becomes counterproductive.
And it comes across too. You can hear it in her voice in the session we're going to hear.
Oh, we're going to actually hear her training session.
Yeah, we're diving into that.
Wow, that's getting up close and personal.
It is, and you can almost hear like almost a stage fright, but in this therapeutic setting.
That's fascinating. So, for those of us who might not be familiar, what exactly is sophrology? I've heard of hypnotherapy, but
Yeah, they sound kind of,
intense.
a little bit. So sophrology, it uses breathing exercises, movements, and visualization.
Okay, so it's about getting people into a deeply relaxed state.
Exactly. And hypnotherapy uses guided suggestion to access the subconscious mind.
Right, so both tap into that mind-body connection we were talking about.
And both really rely on being in tune with yourself and, dare I say it, trusting your intuition.
Which makes Marie's case even more intriguing. She's all about intuition, but feels this intense pressure. How does that manifest?
So she describes it as this physical sensation, a ball in her stomach, especially with new clients.
Oh, I know that feeling. It's like the pressure to have all the answers before you even know the questions.
Exactly. And you can almost hear the gears turning in her head, trying to anticipate how to fix their problems before she even fully understands their needs.
It's like trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle before you've even flipped all the pieces over. You're setting yourself up for frustration.
Right. And what's really striking is that this pressure she's feeling seems to be coming from a past she thought she'd moved on from.
Oh, like in what?
She talks about this previous job that she absolutely hated. It was high control, demanding, just not a good fit for her.
Okay, so clearly something from that experience is stuck with her.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, what's the connection? How is this old version of herself in this job she hated influencing the pressure she's feeling now, even in a profession she loves?
That's the million-dollar question. It's like even when we consciously try to change and grow, there are echoes of our past experiences that can still linger and influence us.
And it makes me think, like, how often do we do this in our own lives? Carry that baggage without even realizing it.
Right, it's so easy to get stuck in those old patterns.
So how is this old self actually showing up for Marie now as a sophrologist? Like, is it preventing her from being truly intuitive?
That's what's fascinating, and that's where the expert in her training session really brings it home.
Okay.
They point out this inherent paradox, this conflict, in how Marie's approaching her work. She wants control, but she also wants intuition.
Right.
And those two things, they just don't go together.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Right.
Exactly. And what's important here is that this isn't just an interesting observation. It's a crucial moment of unconscious awareness for Marie.
Like a light bulb moment. Right.
Exactly. And with that realization, you'd think, okay, now the real work can begin.
Right.
But this is where it gets even more interesting,
Okay.
How can Marie truly believe she's this intuitive person while at the same time she's so stuck in this cycle of anticipation and control?
Yeah, it's like those two things just don't seem to go together.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, what are we even talking about when we say intuition?
Right. It's one of those words everyone's like, oh yeah, intuition, gut feeling, but what does it really mean?
It's hard to define.
It is, and that's why it's so interesting to hear Marie try to put it into words.
Okay.
She describes it as this natural way of being, like it's just always been there, even back in her sales career.
Which actually, when you think about it, sales does involve a lot of reading people.
Yeah.
Right? Sensing what they need.
Yeah.
Picking up on those subtle cues. You could argue there's a kind of intuition at play there.
Oh, absolutely. Being able to understand and connect with people, definitely an element of intuition there. But here's where the conflict comes back, right?
Okay.
When Marie tries to describe how this intuition shows up in her sophrology sessions, she uses the word fluid.
Fluid.
She says it's the opposite of what she experienced learning this very structured form of hypnotherapy,
Okay.
which she found complicated and laborious.
So she's drawn to this idea of fluidity.
Yes.
But she's also the one who's trapped in this cycle of overthinking and pressure.
Yeah. And that doesn't sound very fluid to me.
Not at all.
Right. Quite the paradox. And the remarkable thing is, Marie actually sees this disconnect herself.
Really.
She even admits there's no logic in trying to force intuition through all these techniques and protocols.
That's like trying to capture lightning in a bottle.
Exactly. You can't force it.
So it's like she understands this on some level, but then she's still so drawn to this idea of finding the right method.
Right. And it's almost as if she's equating a lack of structure with being more intuitive.
Oh, interesting. But is that really what intuition is?
That's the question, isn't it? Is it really intuition, or is it just a reaction to all that rigidity she's trying to get away from?
Because it's almost like she's still looking for a set of rules to follow, just a different set.
Yes. And remember that moment when Marie talks about being drawn to this new training because the instructor said, don't even bother taking notes.
Right. It's like she breathed a sigh of relief.
Exactly. And that speaks volumes. It suggests that she might be associating a lack of structure, a lack of note-taking with being more intuitive.
And that's something I think a lot of us can relate to.
Right.
When we're trying to break free from old habits or limiting beliefs, it's easy to swing to the opposite extreme without really questioning if it's actually right for us.
It's like we're so eager to get rid of the old rules that we jump at the first chance to embrace a new set of rules, even if they're not serving us.
So are we saying that Marie's hope, this idea that this training will make her less controlling, more intuitive, is that just unrealistic?
Well, that's what we're going to find out as we head into the final part of this session.
Okay.
And I think you're going to find the experts' observations on this particularly insightful.
So we're back with Marie, and I'm so curious to see if she can actually find a way to be less controlling, more fluid, like she wants to be.
And that's where the expert in the session, they make a really interesting point.
Okay.
They say it seems like Marie's putting a lot of weight on finding the right technique.
Oh, like that's the magic bullet.
Exactly, as if that's all it takes to unlock her intuition.
Instead of it being more about trusting herself, her own instincts.
Exactly, and it's such a common trap, isn't it? We think, if I just follow these steps, boom, intuition.
Like a recipe.
Right. But as we're seeing, it doesn't quite work that way.
It's so true, and I think about this with my own creative process.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm trying too hard to force an idea, it just doesn't work.
Right.
But it's when I can relax, let go a little, that's when the inspiration actually comes.
Exactly. You can't force it.
It seems like Marie's getting that, at least on some level.
Yeah. And remember when she talked about how all the protocols and techniques can feel like they're erasing her creativity or intuition?
Yes. It's like she sees the contradiction, but hasn't quite bridged that gap yet.
And I think that's an important takeaway from this whole session, you know?
What do you mean?
Even though it doesn't end with Marie having it all figured out, she's asking the right questions.
Right.
And just by acknowledging this paradox, saying out loud that she wants to be more intuitive, that's huge.
It's like shining a light on that blind spot, which is often the hardest part, isn't it? Just recognizing it's there.
Absolutely. And that's something we can all do in our own lives, regardless of what we do.
Brilliant.
Paying attention to those moments when we're seeking control, but calling it intuition.
Oh, interesting. Like looking in the mirror a little.
Exactly. And asking ourselves, what truly makes me feel aligned in flow? And what triggers that pressure, that overthinking?
Because maybe, just maybe, if we can sort of notice those patterns, we can loosen that grip on control a little bit, let our own inner wisdom come through.
It's a journey, that's for sure.
It really is. And to our listeners out there, as you go about your day, think about what we've talked about here. Where in your own life are you searching for that balance between intuition and control? What helps you tap into your own inner wisdom? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.